At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soulblazer.
Hello, everybody. This is Greg, joined always by Joe.
Hello.
We are bringing to you today the 220th episode of the Super NES podcast. And today we're bringing to you another Japanese-only game, which I believe was my pick. Because I really was curious to check out a game of this series. This is the only game of that series that came out on Super Famicom / Super NES. We're looking at one of the Parodius games today. The only one which came out, as I said, as I just mentioned before, on the system, Jikoyu Oshaburi Parodius, which translates roughly to Chatting Parodius Live. For reasons we'll get into here very shortly. So, I have played a little bit of the Parodius games in the past because the Parodius games are a spin-off of Konami's successful Gradius series. But the only two I really had played before was Fantastic Journey and Sexy Parodius. So, Sexy Parodius I really like. I think it's a very fun game for sure.
Agreed.
I know you played that one also, Joe.
Yep.
Have you played any other games in the franchise?
So I've seen them, but as far as playing, no, only the Sexy Parodius is the one that I have first-hand account with, other than obviously this game now.
Right. Yeah. Yes. So, yeah, so let's get into the franchise and the games a little bit here and get some background, because the Parodius games may not be familiar to some of our listeners out there. This is actually part of a subgenre of shoot 'em up series I never heard of before until I did research for this podcast, but makes sense. Fans consider the Parodius series, along with other similar games, to be a subgenre of shoot 'em ups, which are called cute 'em ups. So, makes sense if you think about it, I guess. So, so they're obviously very tongue in cheek parodies of Gradius. The name Parodius came actually from combining Gradius with parody. So, smash them together, trying to get Parodius. So, there have been 6 games in the Parodius franchise. 5 of them were shooters. The first game was called Parodius: The Octopus Saves the Earth, which came out originally for the MXS computer in Japan in 1988. Followed by Parodius from Myth to Laughter, originally arcade. Fantastic Journey 1994, originally arcade. This game, originally Super NES 1995, and Sexy Parodius, originally arcade in 1996. There was one more Parodius game, Para Wars for the PlayStation, but Konami curiously changed things up with that game and turned that one into a turn-based strategy game. So, interesting. So. There have been 2 compilations of games from the franchise. The newer, the better one is the Parodius Portable franchise on the PSP of 2007, which includes all the games except for Pro Wars. So, there's also been a number of Pachinko machines which use this theme, of course, because
Of course. Because it's Konami.
As recently as 2010. So, I wouldn't call it. So, I wouldn't call this franchise entirely dead. We can definitely say it's been dormant for a long time. Yeah. So, as with most things Konami has been doing these days, they're really, as I'm sure most folks know about, Konami really doesn't do too much with game development anymore these days. Although they're coming out with the first part of a big Metal Gear Solid collection next month. Is it next month? I think the first part drops. I can't remember. Is this month or next month?
I think it's next month.
Next month, yeah. And they're also apparently working upon a new Silent Hill game that I've heard. So, or 2 Silent Hill games actually. So,
yeah, we'll see if those actually come out.
Well, they've gotten to the demos. Well, no, we're not demo, but like trailer stages. So,
yeah.
Hopefully at this point, because usually when a company gets to trailer stage, they've at least invested some significant time and money into that, and that's like, while companies have scratched that started over again before in the past. Prince of Persia, like anybody, so
yeah.
They're really going to do that obviously because they're going to do that obviously because they're throwing out like all the money and time invested on it. So,
right.
And the Silent Hill franchise still, and the Silent Hill franchise still has a lot of like passionate fans. So, I don't know. I think it's more likely than not we'll see at least one of those games. How good the game is a whole different story, but.
Agree. I think we'll absolutely see the Silent Hill remake. I do not know if we will see whatever the second game is.
Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah. Anyway. So So the Parodius games, like we mentioned before, they're very much tongue-in-cheek games. I guess the best way to describe the games, like, they're very whimsical, lighthearted, very Japanese style of shoot 'em ups. There's still classic shoot 'em up mechanics here, but they're very over the top with like their cuteness and Japanese stuff. And they not this game in particular, but other games of the series are also known for their like sexual risque themes and images. Mm-hmm. Especially Sexy Parodius, which is really like very heavy with that stuff.
Yeah.
This game only had it a little bit. So I really would say that this game is probably fine for like a kid to play because I really didn't see too much Gradius as far as that goes like this game.
Yeah.
So they're also known for being a little bit easier than the Gradius series. So that's not to say that you can't tweak the difficulty settings just to play it on hard and have your butt handed to you, but as a general rule of thumb, because these are meant for a younger audience, these Parodius games are known for being a little bit easier than the Gradius series is. So, if you're not as good at shooters, this may also be a good franchise like you to check out. So, as mentioned before, this game came out in 1995, so kind of like a late Super NES game. The game really pushed the system quite hard. It used 2 dedicated chips inside of the cart from Konami to be able to get the most out of this game. It's one of a handful of games, for example, like to use the SA1 chip, which was used for a number of the later games, and then also the game also had a dedicated sound chip to be able to handle all the music and sound effects and voices that this game has. So. Probably a more expensive game when it first came out, originally in Japan. So, because of all that. So, the SA chip was used. The SA chip was used in 34 Super NES games. Those Super NES games all together. The most notable use of the game that we Westerners like to be familiar with is Super Mario RPG, probably. So
yeah,
which is also getting a remake shortly. As a matter of fact, people
middle of next month.
Yeah, speaking of remakes, yeah, I wish Nintendo didn't want $60, but just $60 for it. So paying full game prices for a remake is kind of rough.
Yeah, I'm taking full advantage of my modded Switch. Will I end up buying it at some point? It is possible because I do have my regular Switch, and it would be fun to have it portable and whatnot. But yeah. Yeah,
if you had one of those club coupons left, the game is the game is eligible for those.
Yeah, and that deal is so good that honestly, if I end up having a spare $100, I'll probably end up forking over the money to get the 2 tickets and just get probably Mario Wonder as well as Mario RPG.
Right. Yeah. That'd be the way to. Yeah. I'm gonna do the same thing. So
end up saving yourself like a whole whopping $20, but at least you're saving something.
Right. So yeah. So anyway, so while this version of the game is very good, several years later, actually, what I'm saying like several years later, actually the very next year, in December of 1996, Konami also released an enhanced version of this game for the Saturn and the PlayStation. So that version of the game has some improvements, which kind of make it the more superior of the two versions. Having said that, though, the original Super NES version of the game is still very good. So, yes, as I mentioned before, it was also included like in the PSP collection. If you're a big fan of the series, getting a copy of that, getting a copy of that collection is probably the best way to go, because it includes all 5 shooters, like in the series. So. Yeah. Or emulate it. I don't advocate emulation for current systems or games, but for something like the PSP, which has been out of market for over 10 years now at this point, there's really no harm in it.
Yeah.
So, all the Parodius games play pretty similarly. As I mentioned before, they're all spin-offs of the Gradius series. So if you remember Gradius, then you know how this plays. You pick a ship, you go through a number of horizontal side-scrolling stages, blowing things up, getting power-ups. The power-up system in this game works very similar to Gradius. However, it does carry over one mechanic from the related Twin Bee franchise, which is another franchise of shooters that Konami did. There are bells in this game that show up every now and then as well. And if you shoot the bells, they change colors, and you're able to get like different status effects and/or awards from them.
Yes.
So it is curious to see that element from that franchise present in this one as well too. But beyond that, the gameplay and power-up system and everything else works right from like how Gradius does. So there are some different power-ups in this game. For example, there's one that makes your ship big, which is not really found like in the Gradius series. The shield system in this game works a little bit different than any other shield system in like the previous Gradius games. And there's also like a different there's also a different power-up, a power-up of the power bar. One is simply just called O with an exclamation point. So, and every now and then you can also certain item or power up will also cause what's called like a slot machine or a rotary effect, in which the power ups just like randomly cycle through your like on the bar like super fast. Yeah. So there are some gimmicks and/or unique things that this game brings to the table to help make it like stand apart, like the other ones. There's a boss like at the end of every stage, of course. There's also like mini bosses like for some stages. You are able to earn extra lives, like and whatnot. You are able to adjust the difficulty settings to the setting of the game. So yeah, so like if you're familiar with like a Gradius game, like you know how this one plays. So, the name of this game comes from the fact that there's actually an announcer in this game who kind of like records and/or comments on your progress as you go through the game. I did not know about this before starting to play the game, and I was blown away by the fact of how much voice this game has. Yeah. It is really impressive. Just like I said, there's a special chip in the system of the cart just to be able to handle all of that. So, the voice is sadly in Japanese. However, I did watch a Let's Play of the game on YouTube where the person transcribed all the Japanese voice into English text for you. So I was able to use that to get an idea of what the announcer was saying. He's pretty much typical Japanese style game show host, like over the top, like equal parts like encouraging and also like disparaging too at the same time. So definitely some humor aspects to it as well too. He calls you like Mr. Pervert as you go through the game. One of the small like erotic aspects of this game. Like it's present in it. So he also gets warnings every now and then, like enemies coming from above, enemies coming from below, etc., etc. Of course, all that is useless to you if you don't know Japanese. But it's really impressive just how much voice this game has.
Yeah, that's one of the things I took from this game is like just the fact that it has as much voice as it is was quite amazing. I didn't expect, I expected it here and there, you know what I mean? Yeah, but like definitely not the way that it's used in the game.
Right. There is a little bit of English like in this game. The main menu itself is all Japanese, but if they're Japanese, but the actual screens themselves are in English. So if you play like trial and error, you can figure out like, okay, this screen's for the options, this screen's for controls, et cetera, et cetera. So when you use a power up in the game, it does speak to you the power up in English, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah.
So and some of the and you recognize some of the directly carried over from English Japanese words or Japanese words like this game, such as like oh and yay or whatnot. Yeah. So but because it's a shooter, you don't really need to know Japanese to be Japanese like to play, like enjoy the game. So the menu system is the hardest part because to figure out because that's trial and error. But like I said, all the screens themselves are actually in English once you actually get into that. So it's not that bad. So. Having set everything up for you, Joe, why don't you talk about the gameplay, the gameplay of this game and other things to want to. And if you want to take a stab at trying to explain this crazy plot this game has, go for it.
So I'm definitely not going to try to explain the plot.
It's silly. It's totally Japanese. There's a joke ending this game, which is very funny. So
yeah. So I mean. With this game, literally, my notes are very sparse because this is, as Greg was saying, this is Gradius, just as a cute 'em up. Yep. I absolutely adore the enemies that you end up fighting, the big bosses and mini bosses that you come across. I made note of like there's like a giant eagle with it literally looks like an American flag bikini on.
There's also like a massive like Sailor Moon type girl. So
yeah. There's dancing cabaret girls. There's mermaids that shoot are like shouting Japanese at you. Right. The pirate bird is probably one of my favorite designs that I saw.
Yeah.
The cat ship is that's ship. CHIP is also quite hilarious. It's a flying, think of like Bowser's Fortress, his little fortress ships floating around, but instead of Bowser's head being in the front, it's this cute little kitty cat. This game is way over the top. One of the other ones that I mentioned, and this I even put this is peak Parodius. Yeah. There is a point where there are Easter Island heads that shoot out missiles that are Easter Island heads. Like there's so much silliness. I cannot say enough about this game. Yes, this is very much a Gradius game. The power-ups kind of work the same. I'll get into that. But like it's such a great twist. And then of course the fact that they kind of lowered the difficulty, making it more inclusive for everybody. Yep. I really like. The characters that you get to choose from is Vic Viper, which is the ship from Gradius. You have Twin B, obviously from Twin B.
There's actually like a lot of options that you pick from like characters. Some of them you're probably not going to recognize because some of these because some of the ships that you can play are characters from other Konami games who just came out to like Japan.
Right. So then there's the Octopus and the Pentaru. It's like a penguin. Those were the four that I saw, and I mean, it gets crazier as you get further into the series. I think if I remember correctly, it's either Sexy Parodius or the one before it had something like almost 20 characters that you could choose from. It was
I think it's Sexy Parodius, yeah. It's been a while since I played Sexy Parodius, but
yeah, same here. But like one of them is like this little girl on a bunny. I shouldn't say a little girl. It's a woman in a bunny costume, riding a missile. Like that's just it gets even more insane than what this game presents.
Sexy Parodius is the peak of the series.
Absolutely.
As far as stuff goes, so.
So, like I thought it was pretty. There's a challenge there, but it's not to the point where it beats you over the head, in my opinion.
And you can also adjust it, just the default setting of the main menu too. So,
absolutely. If you want to be beat over the head, you can absolutely be beat over the head in this one. Yeah, like this is one of those where like just by setting the difficulties, you can go from cute 'em up to essentially a bullet hell game.
Yeah.
And when I say bullet hell, that is aptly described because when you ramp it up, it really ramps up. I thought that the power-ups carrying over from Gradius was nice, and I liked the introduction of the power-ups from Twinbee. Twinbee is definitely one that I'm more familiar with than Gradius.
Yeah, because you were here when we covered. Because you were here like when we covered the Twinbee game last year, right? I think, right?
Yeah.
Was last year that we covered that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So again, like Parodius, there was one Twinbee Super NES game. So, yes, we covered that one. Yeah. I don't care as much for that because I found the bells to be annoying. Honestly, it's the same problem I had with the Twinbee game itself. But I'm fine with it being included in this game because it's a secondary feature of the game. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I mean, so you get red capsules all the time, almost all the time. Yeah. That's going to be the one that you see more often, and that gives it advances your power meter by 1, and then obviously once you get to the max, you're kind of just stuck there. Then you have the roulette capsule that Greg had kind of spoke about earlier, and then you have a blue capsule which will clear all the enemies from the screen. But I thought it was interesting that they don't give you any, like, almost everything in this game gives you points. And obviously this is a high score game, whatever. But when you use one of those screen clearing capsules, it will erase all the enemies, but you don't get points for them. And I thought that was kind of cheesy, but also, like, I guess because they can come up a little frequently, I guess it makes sense why they don't give you points for those.
Sure.
But, yeah. And then we mentioned the bell. You have the yellow bell, which just increases your points from anywhere from 500 to 10,000. You have the blue bell, which will give you additional bombs until you can get the maximum of 3. The white bell, which it disables all your regular weapons, and it gives you a megaphone that shouts text.
Yes.
And it has great coverage. It has great coverage. And the other cool thing is that it basically eliminates the enemy's bullets. So if you are able to get one and you're in a tough section, this is a good way to get out of that section.
The translations of those attacks, by the way, indicate that they're like, like these tiny like little poems, almost like haikus. So,
yeah.
It's pretty funny.
That's awesome. The green bell, again, will disable all your regular weapons. And this increases the size of your sprite, granting you invisibility and extra speed. So think of it like the Magic Star in Mario. Basically, you get a little bigger, you start flashing, and you just start plowing through stuff until it wears off. And then the last one is the red bell, which will add a 3 laser barrier to your your bell stock. And the barriers cover almost the entire screen vertically and will destroy all enemies and bullets that come towards them. That's the one you want more than anything. That's talk about cheating the game. If you can keep getting red bells, fantastic. And much like in Twinbee, you shoot the bell to change its color. So you could essentially chain a bunch of bells and just cheese the game.
Right, yeah. One thing just to mention here real quick to throw in, the character, because I don't think we mentioned this enough, the character to pick from does have an impact upon your gameplay, because that character will have the same abilities, weapons that character does, like in the game that they're from. So if you're familiar with the character, and, in the power-ups it has, pick that character. If you don't care, experiment, because you may find out that one of the characters, suit your game style, better than somebody else does. Because the total like 16 characters you pick from this game to play as. So, and the only two we're familiar here, and the only four we're familiar here, and the only four of those we're familiar with because the games they were featured released here in the West were Brick Viper, Lord British, Twin Bee, like a Wind Bee. So, I probably have to mention real quick, speaking about like West, obviously because of the very, cute / Japanese nature of these games, combined with also the fact some of the games like a very, like erotically tinged. Most of these games do not get released in the West. I was surprised to find out that the second game, Myth to Laughter, and the third game, Fantastic Journey, did get localization. They get like localized releases in Europe, but none of these games ever came out in North America for the reasons I just mentioned upon previously. So, like I said, the PSP collection would definitely be like the best way to go. You want to play the games as a collector, like or whatnot. So, yeah, that was a great summary, Joe. Appreciate it. Shall we go on to the graphics and music?
Yes, absolutely.
The graphics are great. So as we already mentioned before, there's very large animated character sprites. There's a wide variety of characters, but all the characters are also like animated like very well. The backgrounds are lush, detailed, very good. Again, the stage design of this game is very good because they're very good because of like a wide array of backgrounds that you fly through this game, like cities, space, jungles, that kind of stuff. So. The system's really like pushed hard, showing all this stuff, showing all this graphical stuff, handling everything on the screen at once, and also playing all those voices. And unfortunately, it does show sometimes there is some slowdown in this game. Not to the point of like Gradius 3 slowdown, but there is some slowdown in this game because the system's being taxed so hard to handle all this. The PlayStation Standard version of the game, being more powerful systems, of course, they don't have that problem. So the slowdown's not to the point where it's like going to affect your enjoyment. Just that it's just something like to be like aware of and to be understanding the fact that they really push the system very, very hard with this game. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised there isn't. I'm not surprised that there is some slowdown in this game, and in fact it plays as well as it does. But there's no testing like the programming that this game has.
Yeah, so like yes, I agree. There's definitely some slowdown there. I did encounter it, but I felt that the slowdown, like I expected it where it was. You know what I mean? Like, there's a bunch of stuff going on screen. There's a bunch of boards, characters, the backgrounds, like, voices yelling at you. Like, it's literally, when it starts to slow down, it is the Super Nintendo screaming, ah! And, like, you can totally see it happening. But, like I said, it only happened a few times with me. It wasn't, it didn't hinder gameplay. It didn't hinder my enjoyment. And I thought the Super Nintendo handled this pretty well, considering.
Yeah. So, the music in this game is also excellent. This is a very weird soundtrack this game has because it is a combination of recognizable songs. Some new music that was composed of the game, and also remixes of past Gradius songs. So, for example, stage 1 opens up an intro remix of the classic disco song. That's the Way I Like It. So, as I heard that, I'm like, okay, well, that's definitely copyright infringing. So,
Right.
because and it looks like it looks like I'm right because I'm right because the PSP collection of this game, they plays a song. Obviously, so you also have some remixes. There's also like a box song I recognize that plays like another stage. So the last two stages of the game use remixed Gradius songs. They also use some remixed Gradius boss music during some of the during the boss fights. The music sounds great. Like it's like again, like it really shows off the Super NES sound chip here. It's all very like recognizable songs. Sounds good. Like good. Good strong clarity. Like it's very good. A shooter has to have a good soundtrack to play by, and this game definitely delivers.
Agreed, 100%. Yeah, I absolutely love the soundtrack here. I've actually, one of the things I'm probably going to do sometime this week is actually look to see if there is a CD soundtrack available for this, because I actually really like the music and would like to add the collection, to my
Konami did release most of their stuff on CD in Japan. I don't know about this one, because of how old it is, and also B, because of the fact that, like one of the songs they had to remove later on. So, right. Yeah, I'd be curious to know how you make out on that.
I will let you know. But yeah, this is between the graphics, the great gameplay, and the sound and soundtrack. This game is so well-rounded that it's hard to find something that's going to top it as far as shooters go, especially shoot-'em-ups. Yeah. Yes, as I mentioned before, the later PlayStation Standard versions of the game did get some enhancements. Like to make the game like even better. There's also that version of the game adds that version of the game also adds a sub goal where you can find fairies which are hidden like throughout the stages. If you get 70 fairies, like unlock stage select. If you unlock another 70 fairies, it unlocks Dracula Kun and Kid Dracula as playable characters. From the Kid Dracula being like a spin-off Castlevania game that Konami also did. So, which also did not release in the West for the longest time until recently. It was included with the Castlevania collection. It's worth playing, by the way. It's a great game. Yeah, so, I love that game. Other improvements, so like the changes and improvements the version of the game has. You can change the O power-up like a slot machine game that gives you like player bell power-ups depending on the color of the bell. The bells are like when the slots are stopped. There's an extra mode that rearranges like enemy formations in the main game, and it also allows alternating multiplayer, like in the game as well too. Whereas the original Super NES version, like a sort of a single player only game. So the PlayStation version of the game uniquely also adds accident levels, which are small segments. They're random take place once stage ends, and also the ability, if you're somebody like me who gets tired of it after a while, to turn the announcer off. So there's also they also include finally those versions of the games also include like two omic modes, where there's alternate things to do, like kind of like an alternate mini way they can play in the game. Oh, okay. So and that version of the game doesn't have any slowdown because obviously the game's running more powerful software. So it sounds they also altered some of the levels and bosses like a little bit. For example, the cheat code that allows you to be able to replace one of the bosses, like another boss if we want to. So, and of course, the graphics and sound are also upstaged
to take advantage of the additional power that the system has. So, and as good as as good as the Super NES version of the game is, it sounds like PlayStation and Saturn versions of the game are actually the superior version.
Yeah.
So, so I definitely agree with Joe. This is a fun game. I still prefer the Gradius game overall, as far as playing it, because I think the Gradius games just appeal to me more. That said, this Parodius game is also like a very fun spin-off. It's cute, it's whimsical, good graphics, good music. You will at least chuckle, if not laugh, while playing this game at least once.
Yeah.
Because how silly, over the top it is. The gameplay being a little bit easier, I think, helps people who are not really good at shooters. So, there's definitely definitely. Yes, definitely. If you're a fan of shooters. This game's definitely worth checking out. So, and if you like this style game, Sexy Parodius, as we mentioned before, which was originally like an arcade game for arcade, but it got ported to PlayStation, is the ultimate pinnacle, I think, of the Parodius series. Because mind you, that game is more erotic than the other games are. So I wouldn't let a kid play that one as opposed to the as opposed to this game. But having said that, it is definitely a very slapstick, silly, over the top game. Everything in this game is times 10 pretty much.
Yeah.
So, that game should emulate pretty well these days on modern computers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but anyway, definitely a fun game, for sure. So, anything else you want to say about the game to wrap things up, Joe?
No, it's literally this is one of those games that I think is usually very rare for us, but for one, we agree on almost every aspect, and this is highly recommended. This is one of those if you collect or you do not collect and you just casually play, you should definitely find some way to play Parodius, hands down. You will have fun with this game. I don't even care if you are not a fan of shooters. There's still something here for everybody. And you might even become a fan of shooters because of this game. Let me tell you, if this had been my introduction to shooters, honestly, I probably would have been more of a shooter guy. I love those games, don't get me wrong, but I was not, what do they say, seasoned into getting my butt handed to me. I really like to give up very easily. So, if I had Parodius to kind of start me off and kind of ease me into that, I think it would have been a little bit better. But either way, I definitely play this any way you possibly can. It's well worth the time and effort.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Just keep in mind, this game is very, very heavily Japanese because it was only meant for the Japanese market. So, the anime style cuteness may get on your nerves sometimes if you're not really used to that. And the constant announcer, when you can't understand what he's saying, can also be a bit annoying at times.
Yeah.
So, keep that in mind, but with those with those warnings, I do fully back up what Joe was just saying about this game. So, and if you like this game, definitely check out Sexy Parodius as well too. So because that pretty much that takes this game and also also elevates it a few more levels up. So, but anyway, so as you might expect, for a shooter, there are a lot of codes and cheats that are present in this game. Perhaps surprising to you, Joe, the Konami code is not included in this game.
Really? Huh.
They use a modification of the code,
right.
But maybe they wanted to actually leave the code out to kind of differentiate it in the Gradius. So,
which makes sense.
Yeah. So, some of the various codes you can use: 9 lives, extra continues, make yourself make yourself like invincible. Unlock a hidden age of difficulty, which is the highest difficulty level like in the game. Round select, stage select. Round select differs from stage select because round select means actually like checkpoints in the various stages, as opposed to actually like going through the stages, stages themselves. And if you go through the game twice, in loop 3 or above, there's also a way to be able to get different characters show up like in the credits, kind of like like an Easter egg thing. So, but anyway, this game is actually not that bad on eBay to find and as pricing goes, despite the fact that this was a Japanese only game. As common for Japanese only games, we only look at copies of the game that are actually present already in North America. So keep in mind that the prices that I'm about to say reflect that. You may be able to get better pricing if you're willing to take a chance like order from overseas. But obviously you will have to like wait for like longer shipping times, and or complications with trying to deal with people outside the region, for like those copies of the game. So, 30 copies of the game are currently listed on the game. Current list of the game in the North American market on eBay as time we're doing research. 18 copies of the game have recently sold. And these prices, I said, as always, include shipping. Card only was not that bad. Card only prices of the game, like a pretty tight range. $29, $32. Is how much on average a cart goes. CID copies, there were not any of those that have recently sold, but listing prices, people were asking anywhere from like $55 to $63 like for those. So, price seems pretty fair for like an imported game.
Yeah, I mean, and for shoot 'em ups usually demand high prices, so I'm actually surprised. I expected this, even being a Japanese only, I still expected this to be somewhere at least close to like 80 to 100, but I guess, I mean, maybe the Japanese don't love their retro games like we do.
Well, the PlayStation Saturn set of versions of the games do go for higher prices.
Okay, that makes sense, because those are the better ones, so.
Yes. Yeah. So, So anyway, definitely 2 thumbs up for this game. Like, it was very fun to play, like, for sure. So, as always, we appreciate you listening to us. If you have any questions, comments, feedbacks, etc., feel free to leave them on our Facebook page, or you can also email me directly like the SNES podcast at yahoo.com. Joe, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Facebook. You can also find me on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, at JOESUX30. I told you I would completely forget that it's not Twitter anymore, but it's still Twitter. It's going to be Twitter to me forever. So
most people still call it Twitter anyway.
Get used to the old man still calling it Twitter.
You're not the only one doing that, so that's not a problem. But,
we just released our second episode on Shadowrun, so check out the Retro Roundup podcast. We covered the Sega Genesis version, and I didn't mention it in the episode, but it's officially 1 year of the podcast being back, so officially 12 new episodes in the can and published. So I'm going to mention it in the next episode when we record, the next episode we're recording is the monkeys. So, I'm torturing, George and making him go back and watch the, 60s show. I told him, I was like, dude, you can watch whatever episode you want. I'm not going to like pigeonhole you to like a certain episode. I was like, for that show, like every episode was the same. It was the same kind of plot, the same sort of play out. I was like, just enjoy what you're watching, take a general synopsis, and I was like, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's pretty funny, but
yeah, I like taking him and putting him in uncomfortable situations, and anything that's like super old, especially TV wise, like he's always very apprehensive about.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a streamer on Twitch with her, like, who does, quick tangent spin-off, kind of related to, like, 60s shows. She does she also has Patreon because, of course, as anybody knows, Twitch and YouTube give you like awful money. If you're trying to do things like on there. So she also does a movie watch once a month in her Discord group as a bonus for Patreon people.
Oh, nice.
And so one month recently. The movie voted on to watch was Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, which is my favorite favorite movie in the franchise.
Yeah.
She'd never seen anything. Yeah, I do. She'd never seen anything like Star Trek related.
Oh, wow.
She was like a Star Wars. But she was a Star Wars baby, pretty much. So while she loved Star Wars, she never seen anything like Star Trek. So, as I told her, look, if you watch Space Seed, the original series episode based upon the movie first, you'll get they get more out of that.
Right.
So she did, and she got it, and so her reaction to the movie went up on YouTube. It did very well. People were impressed that she actually watched the episode first. So, long story short, she decided to do a react to the original series. So she's going through the original series right now for the first time. So, and again, it's like, that show from the 60s, TV is very different now versus then.
Right.
So it's just, like the same thing. As a matter of fact, Chekhov was inspired partly because of the, partly because the success of the Monkees was going through the same time.
Right.
So, so interesting. But anyway, tangent over. Anyway, next time on the podcast, we're going to be covering another great Disney themed platformer, The Lion King. So stay tuned for that episode next time.
It's Jungle Book, not Lion King.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We already covered Lion King, didn't we?
I think The Lion King was covered before I even got to the podcast.
Yeah. So,
but it's Jungle Book, and it's Disney for sure, and we're definitely going to have words.
Yeah, I've not played it yet myself, so I've seen videos of it.
Yeah.
So but yeah. So all right, and we also have some guest host episodes coming up. They're coming in the near future as well too. Yeah. So stay tuned for that. So again, as always, we appreciate you listening to us. Give us a few minutes of your day. Stay safe, everybody out there. Be well. We'll catch you again next time. Later.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Deep power.